Welcome back to the deep dive. Our sources today, well, they paint a really interesting picture, almost a paradox, of how money and innovation are flowing.
Mm,
We're looking at South Korea, and it feels like things are running at two totally different speeds. You've got this high-speed digital race, almost an arms race, among the big private banks.
right.
But then, sharply contrasted, there's this story of, well, institutional inertia, bureaucratic drag surrounding these huge government policy funds.
That's exactly what we're digging into today. It's this real dichotomy.
Yeah.
On one hand, super fast tech adoption banks throwing everything at AI, stable coins.
Yeah.
And on the other, these surprising, frankly, massive challenges when the public sector tries to actually deploy trillions of won for infrastructure.
So the mission is,
And the mission is to figure out who's actually making waves right now, who's really innovating, and maybe where are the biggest logjams hiding in plain sight.
okay, and looking at the private side, the momentum is just, you can't deny it. Let's start there, with these really aggressive digital strategies from groups like Hana and NH Nonghaip Bank. This isn't just tinkering, is it?
No, not at all. It feels more existential, especially for Hana Financial Group.
Yeah.
Our sources point out they're currently ranked fourth among the big six banks, deposits, loans, and maybe more importantly, the active users on their main app.
The MAU figure.
Yeah, the monthly active users. It's only about half their top competitors' number, sitting around 6.4 million. So they see this great transition, as they call it, as pretty much the only way to leapfrog that position.
Okay, so this great transition, let's unpack that. It seems like it really hinges on two main technologies. One, stablecoins, and AI.
That's right. And it's very organized. They've set up a dedicated digital asset task force, a TF.
TF.
Yeah, a task force, pulling in people from all the different parts, the bank, the card company, securities. And this TF is meant to tackle the whole digital picture.
Mm-hmm.
Stablecoins, crypto spot ETFs, and also security token offerings, STOs.
Okay, hold on. STOs, security token offerings. That's still a bit technical for some listeners. What do they actually try and do with those?
Right, good point. Fundamentally, it's about digitizing real-world assets.
Like buildings or...
Yeah, exactly. Could be real estate, could be complex financial things like company shares, even intellectual property. The idea is you turn these into digital tokens on a blockchain. Then buying, selling, even owning just a fraction of it becomes almost instant, much more liquid. That's the big change they're getting ready for.
Got it. And speaking of big changes, Hana being the first major domestic financial player to officially gear up for a one stablecoin. That seems huge. It suggests the big banks think this isn't if, it's when.
Absolutely. They're already doing proof of concept work, PACs with partners, really focusing on how to distribute it, keep it secure, and critically, how it fits with government rules on currency, foreign exchange, plus how AI can maybe help manage risks in this new digital money system.
Are they looking globally too?
They are. They've signed an MOU, that's a Memorandum of Understanding with Circle, who issue USDC,
Mm-hmm.
and they're talking to Tether, the USDT people. They're definitely connecting with the big global players.
This all sounds incredibly ambitious, but let's just pause on the money involved here. Hana has committed 100 trillion KRW to this Hana growth project by 2030, and 64 trillion of the vast majority is earmarked for AI-related industries. I mean, is that just marketing talk? How do you even hold a company accountable for a number like 64 trillion?
It's a breathtaking number, no doubt, but they're framing it as essential for survival, basically.
Okay.
The accountability, I think, comes from the practical things they're rolling out now. We're seeing real efficiency plays, like their HAI consulting bot, AI models to detect malicious apps, automating parts of the export-import review process, even specialized AI for pension advice. It's not just research money. It's embedding AI deep into how they operate, how they manage risk. That has to show results, efficiency gains to justify that kind of spend.
Okay, so Hana's focusing on the future of money, digital assets, AI. But if we want to talk about pure digital efficiency today, especially in a tricky area, we should look at NH Nonghaip Bank, right? What they're doing for B2B finance.
Yes, that's a perfect contrast. NH spotted a huge inefficiency. Traditionally, corporate banking, opening a business account, getting a loan, always meant going into a branch.
Right, with stacks of paper.
Exactly. Registration certificates, all that. Personal banking went digital much faster, but corporate banking really lagged behind.
And NH's answer is the quicker. What makes that such a big deal for businesses?
Well, they're the first bank in Korea to launch these non-face-to-face services specifically for corporates. The quicker it launched mid-October, it just cuts out the need for those branch visits or all the endless faxing and emailing of documents. They took 9 crucial paper forms, applications, confirmations, things like that, and made them electronic. It's just a massive speed up for their business clients,
Yeah.
a real efficiency jump.
And like Hana, NH is also plugged into the bigger digital picture, right? They're leading the banking sector's One Stablecoin project through this OBDIA group.
That's right. It's clear. The private banks see AI and digital assets not as some far-off future, but as the immediate next step.
The speed is just
Strike.
striking.
It really is. But when you place this speed, this private sector mobilization, against what's happening with public sector capital, well, the contrast is pretty dramatic.
Okay, so we've seen the private sector basically putting the pedal to the metal. Now it feels like we're about to hit the brakes hard. Let's shift to this Regional Revitalization Investment Fund. This is a government policy fund meant to pump money into local infrastructure projects, SOCs. And the goal was massive, 15 trillion KRW between 2023 and 2028.
A huge goal. And that 15 trillion target just makes the reality as of September 2025 look, well, like a stunning failure of execution, frankly.
How bad is it?
The total amount they actually managed to raise or form is 308.6 billion KRW, which is already way off target. But the amount actually invested, only 21.797 billion KRW.
Wait, 21 billion out of 308 billion raised? That's what?
It's just 7.1%. A mere 7.1% of the money they did manage to pull together has actually been deployed.
And what did that 21 billion cover?
Just one project, one single project. The Yosu-Mayodo LNG terminal.
One project for a fund that was supposed to be 15 trillion KRW? Wow.
That's 7.1% execution rate. It's not just slow. It points to something deeply wrong with the policy's design, or maybe its implementation.
So why the blockage? What's stopping the money flowing?
The sources suggest a couple of things. One is poor project selection. Apparently, some investment requests coming in were for things like village halls, low-profit ventures. These kinds of projects just don't attract the private co-investment that the fund relies on to actually work.
But if the projects being proposed are so weak, doesn't that suggest the whole fund was maybe designed from the top down without really understanding what viable projects existed regionally, or whether local areas could even handle big investments?
It absolutely points to potential flaws in the initial planning, yeah. But the problem seems deeper than just finding good projects. Even the money they did raise last year hasn't been properly put to work. That first 300 billion KRW Mother Fund, it's only 51.5% allocated out to the sub-funds that are supposed to do the investing.
So half the initial money is just sitting there.
Pretty much. And maybe even worse, the 100 billion KRW the government budgeted for this year. It's being managed separately by the Korea Development Bank, the KDB, and it's basically just parked in low-yield assets, earning next to nothing. Because the main fund is so stalled, they can't even effectively use the new budget allocation.
That just sounds like the definition of bureaucratic paralysis. The money is there, locked up, earning minimal interest, while regions are supposedly desperate for this revitalization capital.
Exactly. And unsurprisingly, this mess has led to political heat. There's talk in the National Assembly now about cutting the fund's budget, especially since there might be overlap with another huge pot of money, the 150 trillion KRW National Growth Fund.
Has anyone diagnosed the core problem?
Well, experts like Kim Mi-Roo from KDI are saying this whole situation proves you need really solid ways to measure performance before you launch these giant policy funds. You can't just focus on getting a big budget approved. You need to know how you'll track if it's actually working. It's become a sort of textbook example of political ambition outstripping administrative ability to deliver.
Okay, so we've seen the innovators racing ahead and the policy funds stuck in the mud. Let's make one more shift to the regulators, the ones setting the rules for this whole digital finance explosion, especially crypto.
Right. And the Financial Intelligence Unit, the FIU, which sits under the Financial Services Commission, they recently sent a very clear signal. They hit Dunamu, the company that runs the Upbit exchange, with a really significant fine.
A big one.
Yeah, it shows that compliance isn't optional anymore, not even for the biggest players.
How big was the fine?
35.2 billion KRW.
Okay, not insignificant. What did they actually do wrong, according to the FIU's inspection back in 2024?
It was the sheer number of violations that really stood out. About 8.6 million violations of the specific Financial Information Act.
8.6 million. Wow, what kind of violations?
It broke down mainly into two big chunks. About 5.3 million failures related to customer due diligence CDD obligations.
Knowing your customer.
Exactly.
Right.
And another 3.3 million related to transaction restriction rules. Plus, they apparently failed to report 15 suspicious transactions they should have flagged.
Okay, let's pause on the customer due diligence bit. 5.3 million violations. That sounds huge. For you listening, CDD is basically the foundation of preventing money laundering, identifying who your customer is. What does 5.3 million failures suggest?
It suggests pretty serious systemic gaps in how they were monitoring people signing up and using the exchange, potentially opening the door to significant money laundering risks over time. And remember, this fine came after earlier, pretty severe actions back in early 2025. They had a partial business suspension for 3 months, disciplinary action against 9 execs, including the former CEO, so the regulator is definitely turning up the heat.
That's interesting, though, about the fine amount itself. 35.2 billion KRW is a lot of money, but some market watchers were apparently expecting much higher, maybe hundreds of billions.
That's a really important point, because the fine wasn't as astronomical as some predicted. It might suggest something about how the regulator sees these crypto exchanges right now. Meaning, while they're demanding strict compliance, maybe they don't yet see crypto operators as quite as systemically critical as, say, a major traditional bank. It was a serious fine, meant to force changes, but maybe not designed to completely cripple the company financially.
Still, the message from the FIU was pretty blunt, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. They made it crystal clear. Crypto businesses must follow anti-money laundering rules to the letter, and they promise more inspections, more strict measures if they find violations. Compliance is definitely running alongside innovation now.
Okay, so let's try to pull these threads together. What's the overall picture these sources paint?
Well, synthesizing it all, you get this really clear contrast, right? You have the major private banks aggressively future-proofing themselves. They're making huge bets on AI, on digital assets, basically to survive and compete. Then you have the government's big attempt to deploy massive capital through policy funds, hitting these incredible costly roadblocks. Administrative friction just gumming up the works, leaving money stranded, and sort of overseeing it all. You have the regulators stepping in, setting firm boundaries, particularly for the fast-moving crypto world, making sure compliance keeps pace.
Yeah, the key takeaways really stand out. You've got giants like Hana jumping headfirst into one stablecoins. You see NH making corporate banking actually efficient with the quicker.
Yeah.
And then that staggering contrast between the 15 trillion KRW dream for regional funding and the barely 21 billion KRW reality. It's almost hard to believe.
It really is.
Which leads us to, I guess, a final provocative thought for you, the listener, to mull over. Given the incredible speed and scale we're seeing from the private financial sector, think about Hana's 64 trillion KRW AI commitment. What does the slow, almost paralyzed execution of public funds like the Regional Revitalization Fund really tell us? What does it suggest about the government's actual ability to keep up with, let alone effectively steer, financial innovation and regional growth in this digital age? How might that growing gap shape the future? Something to think about. And thank you for joining us for this deep dive.